Bowen battling away. Fed in by Newman, and Robins well forward, and Goss was well forward too, and Norwich have taken the lead. Jeremy Goss again. Unbelievable stuff. Well, when he scores goals, they're either spectacular or important, and that one's both.
Right. Jeremy, thank you very much for joining us first of all. I suppose the natural place to start as ever is probably that night in Munich. First of all, let's talk about your memories of that. How clear is that for you even to this day?
It's very clear. Are you surprised to hear that?
No, not really.
It's very clear. Some days it's as though it happened yesterday. Other times I forget what I've done in my past. I forget that I've been a footballer and we've achieved so much. And you're reminded occasionally when you stare out the window, driving home one night, that wow, we really did that. That was us. We achieved all this. Just a very special time in my life, a special time for the football club to have done so well in 2 or 3 seasons, 3 or 4 seasons in late 80s, early 90s, and it climaxed in the European run, and I think well deserved. I think we had a team that was most certainly capable of achieving it. It proved itself, the team, the squad. We had a new manager in terms of Mike Walker, who had a different way of playing. John Dean, the coach, was exceptional in what he did, and that squad of players that he inherited from Dave Stringer had been together for some 5 or 6 years. So we all came to the top of our game after those 4 or 5, 6 years. We were playing the best football of our lives, each one of us really. So the philosophy hadn't changed either, the way we played football. We weren't a kick and rush team. We played in little triangles and tried to keep it 2 touch under knee height, which is the way we've been brought up since the early 80s of Ken Brown and Mel Machin, and then Dave Stringer and Dave Williams, and then Mike Walker and John Dean carried all that on. And they inherited a very good team. They brought in some excellent players too. They brought their own ideas and strategies into that particular squad of players. And it all climaxed after 3 or 4 wonderful seasons with the European run. And obviously everyone talks about the Bayern Munich game, but my memories are fading away quickly. I don't age well. I'm moving on in years. 25 years later, it's a joy to be still speaking about it. It's a real honour to have been linked with something so special that happened for the very best football team. I idolised the club, and I have done since I was 1981, 82 when I first came here. So to achieve so much in that period of time was very special for me. The greatest days of my life, there's no doubt about that. And I can recall majority of things that went on. But of course, you'd need a longer tape for me to get it all in.
Of course.
So, perhaps we can just touch on the minor parts of it, I should say.
How special was that goal? Even now, the fact we're sitting here 25 years later talking about it perhaps shows how significant it was.
Yeah.
At the time, were you perhaps aware of how big it was for the city, for the club?
No, not at all. Our expectations, my expectations most certainly, was to establish myself in the team and win games and win competitions and get to the top of the league and win medals and be the very best we could possibly be with the squad that we had and the manager and the coach that we had. Even when we got knocked out from that European Cup run by Inter Milan, I always thought that we'd be there again. There's no doubt about that in my mind. It was devastating to lose, because I think at that time we had a glorious opportunity to progress and beat Inter and move on. Unfortunately for us at that time, it was also was up against a terrific side, and Dennis Bergkamp was one of their main players, just one of them, who was exceptional at the time and doing incredibly well. And he did okay in the game, but he managed to score the 2 goals that put us out in the end. But my thoughts were, we're going to get back to this stage. We're going to come into the European Cup again. We're going to qualify again. We're going to get into the FA Cup next season. We're going to really, really achieve and hold our position in the Premiership, as what it was called then. So, on reflection then, it was just getting over the disappointment of being so close and yet so far away from a real achievement. Get into the final maybe, winning it maybe. I still dream of these things, of what could have been and what might have been. Not so much now, obviously, it was too long ago. But you move on quickly, and you've got league games to approach. There's responsibilities. There's games coming up that are big and important, and the fans will be turning up at Carrow Road, and you've got to perform, and you've got to achieve again and prove yourself all over again. So it was okay. We came close. We did really well. We've had a great season. Let's move on. What's the next game? Let's focus on the next league game. Get this disappointment out of our way, and start winning matches again. So that's how it was then. But as the years progressed, you found out very quickly through other people of what a great achievement it was. Being the only British teams who have won in the old Olympic Stadium, and that record still remains. People coming to you saying that we will never get into Europe again. People come and saying, by the way, we're going to be struggling to get in the Premiership again, in the Premier League again, because we're stuck in the Championship and the First Division 1 and so on. And it's only as time goes by that you realise, wow, you know what, that was special. That was a big achievement that not any of us really appreciated at that moment, at that time.
How special was that group of players? Because I think a lot of people expected little Norwich City travelling to the Olympic Stadium to probably get beat quite handsomely, but the fact you didn't perhaps says a lot about that team. I mean, what was it like to be a part of it, and what were the characteristics that made it so special?
Terrific to be part of it. In terms of characteristics, we did the simple things well. We trained to the maximum. We had a group of lads who had the same mentality and the same want and the same energy and passion and desire to do the very best they can to improve themselves and achieve for the football club. We knew the fans, we knew what group of individuals they were in terms of their support to us. We wanted to give back in no uncertain terms, massive energy and massive commitment. 100% effort was minimum criteria for us. So in terms of them characteristics, we all were very much like-minded in what we wanted to achieve. I'd already mentioned that we've come through together, progressing, developing, improving together as a squad of players, not just the 11, but a whole group of individuals moving forward since the late 80s, all the way through into the early 90s and mid-90s. And it was a climax of all of our careers that we reached the peak of our games. Some of us. There were a lot of young players who were coming in as well, and mentioning them, that special mix of youth and experience was excellent, worked well. But we had intelligent footballers, we had very fit footballers, and we had players who were individually 9 out of 10s every single game. Individually, they were the best at what they did. And I couldn't go play left back. Mark Bowen couldn't come in centre midfield and do what I did. Ian Crook couldn't do what Chris Sutton did. But we all did our own particular jobs massively well and very well. And that's what the hidden ingredient was, I think. It was a group of chaps who wanted it desperately. And it showed in the way we played. But we was also talented players and intelligent players. And if you add all that ingredients with a work ethic and a fitness regime that was second to none, then you're on the right road to success. All we had to do was just go out and prove it and gel as the 11 or 12 or 13 that we were. We had to gel together. And Mike Walker would sometimes play 3 at the back, sometimes play 2 fast approaching wing backs, sometimes play 2 up front, 1 up front. But more often than not, it was a basic 4-4-2. And everyone knew their jobs and done their jobs to the best of their ability and at the highest level compared to other Premier League sides. And our mentality of playing the game, 2 touch under knee height in little triangles. So whoever's on the ball's got 2 or 3 options, always. When you get the ball, you keep it in those 2 or 3 options and you progress forward and counter-attack where you can. Create chances.
Yeah, I think Mike Walker is obviously the figure everyone looks to and sort of credits some of that too. How important was he for the squad to install what you said, the playing style, the fitness regime, the man management? Because I understand that things were a little less strict than they are perhaps now, or were under some coaches. So how important was it for you as players to have someone like him in charge at the time?
He was something fresh for me. I was with him in the reserves. I played a lot of games in the reserves, and it took me a long time to get in the first team. So he was my manager for some time when Dave Stringer was first team manager. He knew what he was getting from me. You mentioned two things, work ethic and man management. Man management, for me, he was excellent. The day he got the job, he came up to me and put his arm around me and walked me for a couple of yards onto the turf like you do and have a good heart-to-heart chat. And he just said, I'm going to build my team around you. And it was like a breath of fresh air. It was the confidence boost I needed to really get in and get established and start performing to the best I could. And that confidence boost put springs in my heels and put my chest out, my shoulders back, and I was walking around like I really believed it was me. And I was a big asset to this football club. Look, listen, he may have said it to every single player, who knows, he may have done. But to me, he was a great man manager. He knew how to speak to me, deal with me. He knew how to give me a rollicking. He knew how to praise me. Not overpraise, not praise in big groups, but just that little tap on the shoulder and say, brilliant, and walk away, meant more to me than any stand-up speech and a point out in front of all the lads. And of course, he wants you to do different things in a game that others can't. That's why you're in it. So how he constructed, where he put you in the team and how he constructed his team was vital. And I ended up being that attacking midfield player who had the license to go forward and score goals. But I also had loads of jobs to do that he wanted me to do as well. And when you mix all that around, it was a big thing for me, him getting the job and getting me the team and giving me the length of time to produce that the fans hadn't seen. The fans have only seen bits and pieces of me, a 5-minute, 10-minute, 20-minute sub every now and then. And I never had that consistency in the long run in the team to really prove myself until them days. Work ethic. We had days like Terror Tuesdays, he called them. So you have Wednesday off. You play on Saturday, Sunday off. In on Monday, work hard. In on Tuesday, run. You're running, and the amount of running we did do, and the tempo, and the various different types of running we did, killed you. So you had to take Wednesday off because you were dead. So Wednesday, you relaxed, you recovered, and you're back in Thursday. It was the normal routine. It was the rough routine, but it sort of stuck to that throughout the season. But he appreciated that to be the very, very best, you had to be the very fittest. As well as the gift that you're being given, as well as the talent that you have and the football that you play, if you're not fit enough, you're not going to achieve. And we had a job to do on the ball, but more importantly, we had a job to do off the ball. And the fitness aspect allowed us to press and condense play and win the ball back high up the pitch. So if Chris Sutton was closing down, I would move in. Ian Crook would move in. Rolf Fox would move in. The back four would push up. And together, we would make it difficult for that team to get out of their own areas. If they did get out, we'd back in and we'd get close together and make it difficult to beat. Real disciplined of, and fans don't see what happens off the ball. They mainly see what goes on the ball, what the player's doing on the ball, more than any third man run, any distant fullback run from the opposite side of the pitch, or any other movements. They just kind of mainly watch that guy on the ball and see what he does with it and let the play develop. But if you focus on what you did off the ball, that was more important to us in them days, because we didn't want to get beat. So you make yourself hard to beat, and you concede less goals by being organised defensively, with a solid back four that knew what they were doing. Me and Ian Crook in midfield, the two wide men closed in, no gaps, no spaces, allowing them to get the ball to their strikers. When the ball was at someone's feet, you would close and press, not isolate yourself, but do it together as threes and fours, twos and threes in areas. And in that sense, you were hard to beat. You needed a fitness to make that happen for 90 minutes. And that's where the fitness element came in. When we're on the ball, then the gift and the talent of our players who was in that side at the time, which were exceptional players, came to the forefront and we delivered. I see a little similarity there in lots of different squads throughout many eras, but none more so than what I've seen it in today's game, today's Norwich City, today's players. I see a big similarity to what they're doing compared to what we were doing.
There were a few words you said there, quite a bit. It was togetherness and it was fitness. Those two seemed like the two big elements of Mike Walker's Norwich City. You spoke about it earlier on in your response when you said the group was so close.
Yeah.
Was it a case of him taking the closeness of the group and applying it tactically and making sure that everyone was working cohesively to create a team that, as you say, was hard to beat and that could win games because they believed in each other as opposed to having outstanding individuals?
No, what you do, you've got to work well as a team. As a 13, 14, in today's games, 15, 16, 18 players have got to work well collectively in that 90 minutes, however many get on the time. But with us, it was individually, we knew where we stood with him, and he gave us instructions because he knew what. If you don't trust your players, you mentioned earlier about he wasn't as strict. Mike was strict, but he delivered all the trust on your shoulders. He gave you the responsibility to look after yourself. Drink the right things, eat the right things, get the sleep in, do the training, do the days off training. Perhaps that only relied on me. I was the only fool that did that kind of train every day thing. The other lads had days off, and hence that was my game. The fitness aspect was my game. But he put them responsibilities on your shoulders. We're all grown men. Take responsibility, take it onto the pitch, and deliver and think yourself through that game. You can't hear me from the sidelines anyway. But if I start putting tough restrictions on you, the last thing I want to do is fall out. I want pure respect. And I trust you as a group of lads to go and deliver. And that element of it as well was crucial as a man management skill that he had. But of course, individually, these different elements, 11 different elements, had to work together as a squad of players and on the pitch as an 11. And if we were strong in the keeper, centre halves, midfield players, strikers, you can move the outside players around accordingly as you see fit. But if you're not strong centrally, then you're going to have issues. And that's where he was very good, because he had individuals that were leaders in all those positions and were playing to the best of their games, the best of their ability, and were on top of their game in all those positions. If Brian Gunn, no need to mention him and what the fans know about him. And he's a legend of the football club. He was a manager, he was a dad, and everybody respected him. And he led from the back. Pushed that kind of that management and that captaincy into the centre halves, who did likewise. Again, give the responsibility to the midfield players and striker. And you've got leaders all over the pitch when that happens. And that's what he did well. And I think he had his favourite 11, and he tried to start with that 11 every time. And that's hugely different to what it is in today's game.
Why do you think then, given what you said there about Mike, why do you think when he went to Everton he struggled so much? Was it because the culture was different, do you think?
I can't give you really a real good answer there. I wasn't amongst it. I wish I was. I was playing alongside Barry Horn for the Welsh squad at the time in the run-up to the 1994 World Cup final in America. We were going through our qualifying rounds. And, I was speaking to Barry a lot, who was captain for Everton at the time, and the results just never came. Mike never changed as an individual, and his personality and the way he held himself, the way he walked about the training ground, his methods, obviously they must have worked somewhere down the line, because he created a squad that achieved greatly when he left. He brought Ferguson in at the end, and it was a huge buy.
Yes.
And they started to get results. Did they give him enough time, or did he have 9 months there? Did they give him enough time? Who knows? And I kept speaking to Barry about this, and he was someone different to what the Scousers were used to. And maybe he came across in a slightly arrogant way because of the way he held himself and the way he spoke. I don't know, I'm only guessing this. But the players had respect for him. Barry was always saying that he had great respect for Mike Walker. It just never happened. The teams that he put out never got the results. And you're only as good as your last result. Hence, such a big club had to make decisions. I thought it was far too early, but I know my relationship with Mike was outstanding. I had massive respect for him and huge trust. Whatever he spoke like, walked around like, whatever he said, whatever he mentioned in the press was irrelevant. Me, one-on-one, we had a great relationship and he brought the best out of me.
That Bayern Munich goal for you, I think, must have been quite something, because obviously you mentioned you played all those games in the reserves, to then have a manager who put so much faith in you, to then score in one of the biggest games in this club's history. To go through that journey, it must, to you, it felt like, oh, I've made it here now. So what was it like at that moment when you felt on top of your game? Was there a sort of invincibility about you, would you say?
Football owes you nothing. You've got to go out and earn it and achieve it. And I was just one of those hard luck stories where I'd been at the club for so long. I wasn't versatile enough to play in different positions. I was a central midfield player. I did a couple of stints right wing every now and then, but I had no pace. You mix and mingle around different areas of the pitch throughout the 90 minutes and do your job and do what you're good at. Wow, it took a long time to establish myself as a centre midfield player. When you think who was in front of me in the early days of Peter Mendham and Ian Crook was there. You had Martin O'Neill in the early 80s with Mick Maguire, terrific midfield players, Peter Mendham. And that then very soon became an Ian Crook, Andy Townsend formation of a solid two, and a Mick Phelan as a solid 2 or 3 that the manager could mess about with me on the sidelines as a reserve waiting for his chance. And these guys, who knows what would have happened if Dave Stringer had said, I'm building a team around you. Dave was lovely to me. Dave was a great mentor, great manager, and a great person in my life. But I never really got established because of those individuals and because the wins kept coming. And Dave Stringer was one of the most successful football managers this club's ever seen. I think it was fifth in the league and 2 FA Cup semi-finals. Wonderful achievements. When Mike turned up, he gave me that opportunity to establish myself. And when the good times came for me, it was through confidence, it was through belief, it was through knowing the manager had every bit of faith in me. It was knowing that the other lads around me had respect for me as a person and my ability in what I could do in the game and how I could add to the team. But it was never the Leeds goal, terrific goal, I've arrived. It was never that, because you're only as good as your last training session. So that was one of the very greatest days of my life, because we played the best football I've ever been involved in against Leeds on that day. And when we beat them quite handsomely and I scored that goal, it was, wow, unbelievable, lads. You celebrate for 90 minutes, you celebrate for the trip home on the bus, have a few beers if you want to, chill out, relax, have Sunday off, Monday we start again. And if you're not up to it on Monday, you're not going to be in my team on next Saturday. So you start again, and you have to prove yourself all over again. Game's forgotten about, move on. Get fitter, get stronger, learn more, try and gel more, try and deliver more. That was the objective. So for me, it was never yes. It was a culmination of different goals. It was a 238 in the end appearances in the first team that I really look back at and go, I got what I could from it. I gave my best, and I hope the fans realised that I tried my hardest for them. And I'm pleased to look back, and all the feedback I've got from the fans that I know say exactly that, and that makes me proud to know that I couldn't have given any more, that I was a huge trier, that I had a passion and a love for this football club. I did my best for it. I showed resilience. I showed patience. I could have moved on to Man City and to Barnsley with Mel Machin, but I chose to stick it out here and play for this football club and do what I could. The good times came, and I was so appreciative of being given the chance, and it's an absolute honour to represent this club. Out of the thousands who want to play football, there was a manager who threw the shirt at me and said, go out and play for us. Now, how lucky am I? So I can moan and groan and tell a little sob story about 500 reserve team games, and it took 8-9 years in the resis and the youth team to just get me established and what could have been and what could have happened, but I don't. I'm grateful of what I achieved in the end. Okay, a bit of a regret that it happened all too late in my career, but the Leeds goal, the Liverpool at Anfield goal, the Munich goal, the return leg at Carrow Road when I scored against Munich again to Bayern again to put them out. Being involved in a Welsh squad that had unbelievable players, the best in Europe at the time: Ian Rush, Mark Hughes, Dean Saunders, Neville Southwell, Barry Horn, Ryan Giggs, the great and late Gary Speed. How lucky am I to have had a taste of all that? And that's what I look back on, and I savour that, and I've captured that, and I've got that in my heart and my soul somewhere. And that heart and our soul I gave for this football club, and it still remains at this football club. So it was never, look at me, I've arrived. It was, I've got a job to do, and I've got to prove myself again tomorrow.
I mean, you mentioned there you had opportunities to leave the football club, and I think most players, perhaps in your circumstances, probably would have. What was it that kept you at the football club? Was it simply the love, or was it the case of you had a point to prove and you were determined to do that?
Two things really: a resilience to show what I could do and what I could achieve, and Dave Stringer, who I've mentioned already, was a terrific mentor to me. He was a wonderful manager. He was my youth team manager when I first arrived in 1981-82. He was the youth team manager. Ken Brown was the manager. Mel Machin, first team manager, and Ronnie Brooks was the chief scout, who did a lot with Dave Stringer in the youth team, with us as young players coming through. Had a barrel load of hopes and dreams right in front of me, and it started then with Dave Stringer at Troush Training Ground. Cold showers, muddy pitches, couldn't see the white lines, rock hard footballs, running, chasing, mousehold, university, run till you're sick, get up and do it again. No food, no drink, just get on with it. Ham sandwiches down the shop in Troush Training Ground. Being an apprentice for Mick Shannon and Peter Mendham, crumbs, Keith Birchin, John Dean. Just remarkable squad of players in my early days when I arrived, and never forget them. Could name every single one of them. And it was him, when I mentioned, I've come to the end of trying here. I'm doing all I can. I'm doing the best I can. I just don't think I'm getting the opportunities. I'm mid-20s. I need to move on. I've been on loan to a Swedish team called Luleå. I've learned a lot from that. I had 2 seasons playing with them. I've come back. I feel I'm a better player, but I'm just not being given that chance. I need to move on. I'm gonna move on. And he was so lovely to me in what he was saying, how he was saying it, the picture he was painting about the future, the reasons why I wasn't in the first team, but I should be in the first team, and I would be in other people's first team, and how much I would be an asset to this football club if I'd just be that little bit more patient. It wasn't a subject of, you're not good enough at the minute, train harder, play better, get in the team. It was, you're there, you're with them, you're at that level, but I can't drop a winning team, and I can't change that formation. Otherwise I'm going to be looking silly. And he was right in what he was saying. So he convinced me just to be a little bit more patient, a little bit more resilient, dig in, stay quiet, get on with my job, get fitter, get stronger, do what I do every single day, and be a great advert and a great role model to the youngsters coming through, as well as put pressure on the first team players who would think they're established. Because the youngster always comes through and tries to push out those guys, and you're the youngster coming through. And his talk was excellent, and he persuaded me, and he gave me hope that my time will come. And I signed a 3-year contract with the football club, and I stayed there. He then moved on, and Mike came in, and so on. And so those 2 things were the main reasons for me staying there and being as resilient as I was.
You sort of touched on it earlier that you had an element of regret, perhaps now that you did opt to stay at the football club a little bit. Is that something you still reflect on from time to time and say, what if I'd have taken the move to Man City? What if I'd have gone to Barnsley?
Who wouldn't be at night thinking about what ifs and maybes? We've all got that in our lives. Footballers have got stacks of them. Stacks of them. What if he got injured? No, he didn't get injured. What if I got on? What if I didn't get on? What if that manager wanted me? Oh, I turned that down, that move. I should have gone there. Things may have been different. You can't do that, can you? It doesn't happen. It doesn't make it sensible. You can't live with them sort of thoughts. But I did have opportunities to go to Barnsley. I did have opportunities to go to Man City in the early 80s, before Man City were what they are now. Yes. With Mel Machin, who I admired a lot as an individual and as a taskmaster, as an individual who was disciplined in the way he approached and complimented Ken Brown as the manager. He gave all the respect and gave everything for Ken naturally, but as the coach, it's the good cop, bad cop. I understand that, and then many people do, but Mel was brilliant at getting the best out of you, and he was as honest as the day's long, and that's what footballers want. They want all that. It never happened for me. It didn't materialise. The last minute it fell through on both occasions. The last minute Dave Stringer did come up to me and convince me to stay because I was ready to quit the game and run around the world, and that is the truth. I was going to quit the game and be an athlete and run around the world because I was a runner before I became a footballer. I was doing marathons at 14. I was a Sebco freak. He was my idol and still is. That guy, the way he runs and his bounce and his stride patterns and everything about him, I used to try and copy. And I was so demoralised. It was Oxford United away. Yet another game in the reserves that I said to myself, we've just got to beat. I've worked like crazy. I've covered every blade of grass on this pitch. I am gone physically. I've put so much into this. And I looked up at the stand and there's about 10 people watching, making their way out of the stadium. It was raining hard, freezing cold. And I made my mind up then, I'm going, that's it, I'm done. And it was Dave who persuaded me not to do it. And it was the love of the game eventually that persuaded me to give it another go and to stay involved in this. So many things could have happened. So many things didn't happen. But I look back and think of all the great things that really did happen to me as a player and in my life. And I'm really, really happy with that and content with that. And I don't look back with regrets. I just look back with opportunities that may have changed the course of my life. But we all do those things, don't we?
Yeah, I suppose as you say, if you'd have taken that Man City move, then Bayern Munich wouldn't have happened and whatnot. So there's elements of each that you can pick out of it. You mentioned there that it was your love for football that kept you going in those dark times.
Yeah.
Was there a time though where you sort of had a conflict with football? You fell out of love with it at all? Because in those periods where perhaps you're not knocking on the door, I think most people would question whether this is for them.
No, I knew it was always for me. Since I was 6, I've always wanted to be a footballer. I support Man United in the early 70s and mid 70s when they won the FA Cup and beat Liverpool, and I could name the whole team, and Gordon Hill was my hero in them days, and Stevie Coppell was on the right wing doing unbelievably well, Lou Macari, Stuart Pearson up front. These guys, they meant the world to me, and I can see how youngsters idolise football in today's world. They were my heroes. I wanted to be them. I wanted to be that professional footballer who ran out at Wembley and scored winning goals and walk up them steps and lift the trophy. I wanted it desperately, and I'd always loved it. And there was no way that I was going to be prevented from doing so. Even when I was rejected as a youngster at Southampton, rejected at Aston Villa, I still went on and became an England under-19 player. I still went on and played for my Kent County. Still went on and got identified from Ronnie Brooks, who then invited me to Carrow Road and met Dave Stringer and the rest and set me on my way with Norwich. The love of it was always there, but there was no light at the end of the tunnel. The pitch, the ball, the lines, the goal, the nets, the muddy pitch, the lights, that was football for me. And that's what gave me wide eyes then and gave me wide eyes now, because that's football and I loved it and I still do. And that passion to be part of it and play the game with the rules and keep that ball up on your feet and kick it against the wall if you're on your own and then knock about with your teammates. That love was never disappeared. But the success for the workload I was putting in wasn't there. It wasn't justifiable. My energy out was extreme and becoming exhausting. My energy out, there was no success in. There was no step forwards. It was one step forward, 3 or 4 steps back every time. You would do your best and run like crazy and work and chase and squeeze and press and be the one who makes that 50-yard overlapping run and be the one who makes an 80-yard back to chase a guy to stop him scoring and be the one who G's his team and everything that's positive about my game and the game of football I was doing, but I was getting nothing back for it at the football club at that time. Hence, I wanted to move on very quickly and move out of it very quickly.
Do you think that journey through the hardships of reserve football made you appreciate the experiences of first team football a lot more?
I believe it did, and I look back at my career and I've experienced all emotions. I wasn't a young lad like the young boys today, and the 2 fullbacks are outstanding, and young boys outstanding in today's game and in today's Norwich City. They're playing 50, 60, 70 games already, and they've not even reached 20 years old. It's just remarkable. Well done to them. But I wasn't in that position. I didn't go trialist, youth team success, which we got in 1983 in the Youth Cup winning side, which was outstanding with unbelievable players in it. Straight from there, straight into the first team. People like, in them days, Tony Spearing and Louis Donowell got their chances, and Paul Clayton and John Rigby had a little teasy chance into the first team squad then. But I never was one to go so gifted, so talented, so brilliant. FA Youth Cup winning side 83, the following season, first team player, alongside Mick Shannon, alongside Steve Bruce, well he came later, alongside Peter Mendham, Martin O'Neill, Mick Maguire, alongside Mark Barham, Keith Birch and John Dean up front, Dave Watson at the back, Paul Haylock, Dennis Van Wyk. I've named them all, and have I done that? Chris Woods in goal, brilliant. I didn't go from there to there and then go on and play 100 appearances by the time I'm 20. It never happened for me. So you just grit your teeth and you get on with it and you fight your corner and you do the best you possibly can, like my dad has always said. You stand up, you brush yourself down and you get on with it. And him being an amazing army man, my characteristics were his to a certain level. I wish I had more of his characteristics and I'd have gone even further in the game, and that's a promise. But you know, I idolise my dad, and he gave me the ingredients and that character trait of stand up, roll your sleeves up and get on with it, which I did. It just took a while, but I experienced the good times, the bad times, the in-between times, the rough times, the frustrating times, that I'm going to finish this and run around the world times. And then, before I know it, I've experienced the greatest moments of my life in Norwich City's arguably greatest era of their time, achieving the greatest victories of their time. And I'm talking not just about Munich, I'm talking about the Vitesse Arnhem game, I'm talking about beating Liverpool at Anfield and going to Chelsea, going to other big top 6 teams that you win comfortably. Even Spurs, they were huge teams at the time. And being part of all that and experience all of that makes it taste so much better, knowing that you've come from there all the way through and now you're finishing here. The climax and the icing on the cake would have been if Wales had got through the World Cup finals in America. That would have been holy, lowly. Come on, you can't write this, can you? You can't write it. But just to be in the squad and Terry Yorath picking me to be part of that squad to compete and winning 13 caps and doing 20, 25 trips with the squad all around the world, all around Europe, mixing with the greatest players in Europe at the time, as I've mentioned their names earlier. How remarkable and how lucky I've been. So, in a very strange way, I'm pleased it was so hard to get to where I got, because I appreciate it so much more.
I'm just wondering what your thoughts on reserve football is. Obviously, you played so many games as a reserve player.
Yeah.
Is it something that you
I don't know, I'm laughing at that. I laugh every time you say it.
It's some achievement, to be fair. Maybe not the one you'd want, but
absolutely.
It's an achievement.
Absolutely.
Is it something that you felt improved you as a player, if not technically, then mentally, perhaps?
I didn't move on from it, no. No, it's called the reserve. It's called the graveyard. It was the graveyard shift. We called it that. Are you in the graveyard shift this week? You just walk out there on a Friday's training session as a group, the whole squad. All right, these lads over here, first team player, first team player, first team player, first team player, over there. These lads go with the youth team. The rest of you lads over there with the reserve team manager, whoever that might be. John Faulkner at the time. Mike Walker, and you drop your chin on your chest as soon as that he finished announcing the first team names. You went, oh, boom, you're Aussies again, you're in the graveyard shift. You're too old for the youth team. You're not playing this weekend. You're over there, you're doing a bit, and you are running until you drop, because there's no training Saturday, no training Sunday. You're in again on Monday. So you are running, and you run, and you run, and you run, and you look at the first team go through all their set pieces and their short, sharp five-a-sides, and you think, what am I doing here? I need to be down there. So you work hard, and you stay focused, and you do what the gaffer says, and you stay professional. But for 500 league games, reserve team games, who's the fool around here? I think people are laughing at me, aren't they?
Well, yeah.
I'm laughing at myself.
Well, that's the main thing. As long as you come out laughing,
You know,
I suppose that's the main thing.
crumbs. And I dare say, the toughest job as a manager is being a reserve team manager, because you've got to lift the morale of the lads that you've just taken on that Friday. Even on a Monday, game on Tuesday night, lads, the reserves come with me, bang, over there. Right, chaps, come on, you've done nothing over the weekend. First team have got a great win. This is a good opportunity for you tomorrow night. Where are we playing? Oxford away, 7:45 kickoff. Takes 3 days to get there, 3 days to get back. You're on a coach for hours and hours and hours. The travelling part of being a footballer is not nice, certainly when it's a reserve team game. And back then, you seem to think meant nothing. But it was your chance to impress the manager. Maybe the gaffer would come, maybe the first team manager would come and watch you. Maybe some scouts would come and report back to the gaffer. The reserve team manager would report back to the gaffer about how you're doing, about the team's morale and who's up for it, who's a letdown, who doesn't want it, who fancies it, who really, really is full of energy and wants it big time. So you had to work well. You had to impress the reserve team manager. And let's be honest, you've got to give the guys respect. He's your gaffer that day. He's your boss. He's telling you what to do. So respect him.
And I suppose after that journey of coming through the reserves, then having the heights, suddenly Mike Walker leaves, Chris Sutton leaves, and you find yourself in a similar position again. How hard was that for you mentally to go from them heights to thinking that perhaps it was your time to then find yourself out of the picture again? Yeah,
going back to your question prior to that, there wasn't a lot that you could learn in the reserve team. It was basically the same type of game. You just had to keep performing to a high ability, do the simple things well, work hard, show great enthusiasm and passion for the game, show a desire to want to win this match, but do things well and be creative, get shots on target, try and score goals, get back and defend, and don't get unnoticed. Be the one who's the standout guy. But in general, there wasn't a great deal to learn because it was a set 4-4-2. It was a mishmash of players, some players out of position, some players and formations were so different that we've never tried them before, but it was the only way to field a team. So you couldn't really learn a lot from it, but you got energy out, you got match practice in, although it wasn't first team tempo. So that atmosphere and that environment was pretty poor to be with. And you had to lift your head up and fight your way out of that to get in the first team, which eventually happened to me. You get in the first team, you do all these great things, you get knocked out of the European Cup, at UEFA Cup, and then suddenly the Mike Walker announces he's leaving the football club. And I remember at the transfer he came up to me and said, I'm leaving, I'm going to Everton, I'm going to be Everton's manager. And I knew the club would change from that moment on. Chris Sutton went to Blackburn. Jack Walker sold his steel company, got £300 million and bought the championship team, bought the Premiership team, that's what it was called then, with Alan Shearer and Tim Sherwood and everybody else, and Chris Sutton went with them. Roy Fox went to Spurs for £2.5 million. The team became invisible to what it was. It evaporated. And then people's thought processes changed and became singular as to what they could get out of the game, and is it time for them to move on. John Dean became caretaker manager and found it very difficult in a difficult set of circumstances. Brought a lot of northern players in, the Carl Bradshaws and John Newsoms and Neil Adams and players like this and Mike Milligans, and a new team in front of your eyes were being created in front of you, and it was the wheel was turning. The wheel was turning, and sadly for us, we got relegated. Gary Megson took over, and as a caretaker manager, suddenly we were told the money's running out, and there was none, and that myself, in terms of being a contract-based player, was never not going to be offered another one, and then suddenly you were told to leave the football club. Injuries came my way, which were unfortunate for me, but part and parcel of the game. I had adductor issues, back issues that kept me out for some time. I had a torn ankle ligament, which was the worst ever under Martin O'Neill when he came as a permanent manager. I was playing catch up all the time through injury, fighting a different feeling in the camp, fighting with a different set of circumstances surrounding Norwich City Football Club as a whole, and fighting fitness. And it all went against me. Martin O'Neill never played me. I ended up playing more reserve team games, and suddenly I was back to where I started. And even in the reserve team games, you're not performing well because you're still struggling for match fitness. And by the way, you're getting on a little bit. You're over 30 now, you're 31, 32. And I don't care who you are, eventually your body tells you that you can't do what you did a year ago. You can't do what you did 6 months ago. That type of game, I had to change my that type of game. It was disheartening. And it was a very, very sad end to what was a brilliant working relationship I had with the football club. A close working relationship, and a heartfelt one, sincere one. It was a sad end because I fizzled out and no one knew where I went. It wasn't one of these, Gossie's playing his last game for the football club this Saturday. Let's all get behind him and say goodbye. He's going to bring his family on. There's going to be a lap of honour and we're going to do this. None of that. It was whatever happened to Jeremy Goss. Where did that player go who scored that great goal in Munich? I've heard so many people say that. Whatever happened to that lad? I don't know. Did he die? I don't know. He disappeared somewhere. He just disappeared. We had to leave. I had to leave. And the same with other members of the side. I had to leave because of financial strains. So it was the end of the football club for me, and I had an option. I could have gone to Charlton, or I could have gone to Hearts in Scotland. I had no agent, and it was difficult, very difficult for me to come to terms with dealing with both managers, Alan Kirbishley, Jim Jeffries. Alan Kirbishley doing tremendously well with Charlton, up and coming club, big plans, terrific manager. Jim Jeffries, a huge move for me. Scotland, different type of football. Celtic Rangers, the very top of the tree, but it's always Hearts, Aberdeen underneath them. And they're in European football this coming season. And because I had no agent, I kept talking to one and talking to the other. Eventually made a decision. In pre-season, at the end of the season, I trained throughout. I was one of those players. I needed to train every day and do things every day to maintain my fitness. I was so involved in this diplomatic, who should I go with? Because I didn't have an agent, I missed out a lot of training in pre-season. I chose Charlton. I went to Charlton. I spent 2 weeks training at Charlton. I went upstairs to see Alan Kerblish and I said to him, hand on heart, I've made the wrong decision. I need to move. I'm sorry. I've made the wrong choice. And he was wonderful with me. He was brilliant. He said, Gossy, you won't be the first. You're not going to be the last to come to me and say those same words. It's happened before. It's going to happen again. Best thing about it is you've been honest and we've still got time to replace you. I then went up to Scotland, joined Jim Jeffries for Hearts. Played 2 years up there. When I was 32 to 34 years old, came back down here after that. Never felt fitter, never felt stronger. But I had a terrible adductor problem up in Hearts. Which again, one of those, if I could have produced my best, then the fans, in their perspective of me would have been better, and their assumption of me would have been better. I never showed them my qualities enough of while I was up there. Which, there you go, it didn't happen for me. Come back down, and I was basically, my career had finished. Went to play for, I went to play with Tony Spearing, my old friend from the Youth Cup winning days of '83 with Kings Lynn and Gary Mills as manager. Realised that wasn't for me and moved on. And the rest has been just behind a sporting scene, away from football, doing what I do. And that's in a nutshell my kind of career. We've fast-tracked it.
Gone full circle.
We have fast-tracked it. But I love it. I'm getting excited just talking to you about it, because you're bringing back the passion I've got for it, and the club, and the game of football, and our achievement in that side. You're bringing it all back to me, which is something I rarely do, because you need to close a door and you need to look forward. So when I open that door and reminisce about the great days, it brings a tear to my eye, because we were such a special squad. There's a secret ingredient, there was a secret chemistry that we all had there that gelled us together, that got us performing to the best of our abilities and achieving and winning games. It's very rare that chemistry is amongst the team. And once again, I will say that I see that chemistry in this current side, like I saw it in Nigel Worthington's team of 202. I saw it in the 85 Milk Cup winning side of 85 with Ken Brown. Our Dave Stringer side when we got to 2 FA Cup semi-finals, Mike Walker's team of 93, 94, then Nigel Worthington's team, and of course one or two eras that have gone before there. But this current squad of players and how they're playing, I think, is very, very special, very special. And I'm sure they're just going to get what they deserve, and that's promotion. And certainly the fans deserve promotion.
So we've sort of gone full circle now. We've sort of covered your career. I suppose people will want to know what you're up to now, because we don't see much of your face compared to perhaps others in the media. So yeah, what are you up to?
Well, at the minute, I'm working for a local charity called the NNAB, the Norfolk and Norwich Association for the Blind. It's, first of all, when I came out of football and come back from Hearts in Scotland, the reality kicks in that you are no longer able to play football to the level that you want. In other words, professional contracts now don't exist. Way back in them days, I wasn't fortunate enough, like many other players, to be a multi-millionaire and go buy huge mansions and fancy cars. So you've got a responsibility to support your family. You go out and find a job. And coming out of a sporting industry, coming away from what I achieved, and it being so fresh in my mind, I had to quickly switch my whole mentality around to being a different individual earning a different living in a different industry. So I got with Norwich City Football Club. I was an academy coach under Dave Stringer and Sammy Morgan for a while, and at the same time I worked behind the scenes in the commercial department at the football club, Carroll Road, alongside my great mate Brian Gunn and Andrew Cullen, who was sales and marketing director at the time there. And pleased to be given the opportunity to be welcomed in, and pleased to be given the opportunity to be employed, basically. But it was tough. I'm not saying this has been an easy ride for me in the last 20 years since I finished the game. It's been really difficult to become a different person, have a different mindset, mentality, and a different set of responsibilities, and learn a different trade. And it is arguably the hardest things I've ever done. To accept it and to come away from what you love hugely, to go into something that's awkward and complicated, an environment, office environments of PCs and typical the office environment stuff, and I can't think of anything else, but just being in an office with other people, not being active for so long through the day, not earning so much money, trying to establish a different goal and trying to learn a different trade has been so hard. And not the learning of the trade, but the acceptance of it. And I really had to close the door, lock it, and never open it again, and turn my back on it. Because the more I opened it, the memories would seep in, and the reality would hit me so hard that how could this game of football give you so much love and so much enjoyment, but turn out to eventually give you nothing, to eventually put you in a position where you're starting your whole life over again as an 18-year-old schoolboy, a college lad who's looking for a job, applying for jobs, getting CVs created, trying to figure out what you're good at, trying to figure out what motivates and inspires you, but of course trying to figure out how you're going to earn money. How can something so good eventually lead to something so challenging? And it took me a long time to adapt to it. Even now, I find it hard sometimes, even now. But I've switched my mentality, and I'm looking forward, like I have done, and got involved with the football club in terms of the coaching element, went through all my licenses, went through marketing situations, sales situations, doing creative roles with the football club in terms of ambassadorial roles and the introduction of companies into the football club and how it can benefit them, an introducer, a relationship builder, a basic business development manager role within the football club that I took away from there and incorporated into the local charity, the NNAB. And that's where I sit today, and that's where I am today. Who knows? You know, I've been there a long time, and there's always different challenges, harder challenges. The third sector is a difficult world to be involved in. Support in terms of fundraising and donation is always hard to come by. And I think I've been a huge asset, and I think I've worked as hard as I possibly can for them. Long may it continue, but you don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. And there's always uncertainty away from football. And I've found that out very quickly. There isn't a 3-year contract. There isn't bonuses. There isn't an objective and an opportunity to earn this amount, that amount, and an opportunity to play in the FA Cup and play at Liverpool and go to Man United and go to Chelsea and beat these guys. There's not an opportunity anymore to play European football and do your best and be on all the back pages. There's no way. That's gone and disappeared. That's evaporated. You just got to find yourself, and it's a different you and a different approach to a different industry. But I've done it because I'm a passionate and proud family guy. My wife and my 2 sons mean my whole life and my whole world. So you do it for them. You do it for them. And that's where I'm sitting today. Who knows how long it's going to be? I don't know what tomorrow's going to bring, as I say. But flipping back, yeah, I just felt there was a huge turning point in the club's history when we were knocked out by Inter Milan. And Dennis Bergkamp scored his couple of goals, and we came so close. Certainly with the home leg. If we were 1-0 up on the home leg, I think the away leg we would have done better. As it happens, we were 1-0 down, chasing the game in the San Siro Stadium. And it was difficult with a very experienced Italian side who wasted time for fun and were professional at diving, professional at wasting time, professional at winning the referee and getting them on their side. You end up chasing the game. And Dennis Bergkamp stole away the last 10 minutes and scored, and we lost on an aggregate 2-0. So you're out of that. But as I said at the start of our chat together, I honestly thought it was the beginning of something so great for the football club. And I couldn't believe that Robert Chase decided to go infrastructure, an all-seater stadium, and the first club to do so, to buy Kerrison Road, to buy Coney, and deliver the resource, the assets to the football club for future development. As a business guy, people may shout me down, but at that moment in time, the investment needed to go into the squad to keep us there in that Premier League. I would never have let Mike Walker go. I would never have let Rule Fox go. Now, Chris Sutton was £5 million. Then that is a tease. Would you accept £5 million for Chris Sutton? Listen, I wanted him to stay and play with him forever. He was a terrific player, great goal scorer, a great lad to have around the team, and Rule Fox. I'd want them both in my side all the time. And I thought that's what was going to happen. 5 million in them days was probably like 105 million in today's game. So maybe he had to go. Maybe you'd have to let him go. But I would have kept Mike Walker. I'd have kept the squad together. I'd have bought players in. All you had to do was give Mike what he wanted, and not spend so much money on the future asset of the football club in terms of infrastructure. Just concentrate and focus on building on that squad that could have gone on and maybe delivered that cup that you wanted. You know, established itself in the Premiership as always a top 6 team, always competing and beating Man United, Liverpool, Chelsea, Arsenal, and so on. And we could have been that side had he put money into the squad and kept Mike. And that was a big thing for me that I didn't approve of. Who's to say I'm right or wrong? We will never know. And in today, when we look back at Carrow Road and we see Coney Training Centre and we see what the club own and we see the finance that's coming our way due to the land that's theirs, who's right, who's wrong? Who's right, who's wrong? You'll never know. And flipping forward again, when Martin O'Neill first came to the football club, I thought it was a terrific appointment. I thought he was exceptional as an up-and-coming manager. As I found out, I didn't really get on well with Martin. I didn't like his ways. I didn't like his the way he approached the man management skills that he had. I felt were not me, and I didn't really get on with Martin. I had to tell him so, and I eventually left the club because of that. I had an injury at the same time, which did me no favours. I was injured in pre-season, doing my own running, getting fit for pre-season, like I always did. And I was in training. I remember one day being in the physio's room with Tim Shepherd, our physio, and he came in, and even before we were due to get together, as the very first day of pre-season training, I was in getting treatment. So how embarrassing was that on my behalf? And he kind of let me know that in no uncertain terms that I was a fool. He didn't say him in them words, but I got his message loud and clear, and I got the way he was, and I just didn't approve of his methods and his preparation for games. And other players may have felt the same as me, I don't know, or didn't feel. All I know is, for me, I knew it was the end of my time at the football club. Here I am saying I didn't get on with one of the greatest managers football has ever seen, because he did so well with Norwich. He then went on to Leicester City and did so well with Leicester City He then went to Celtic and won billions of games and lots of cups and produced brilliant European sides. But Chris Sutton being one of the guys involved in that. Look at him now. What a guy, what he's achieved. But for me personally at that time, it never worked out for me and Martin, and I could never get on well with him. And I don't think his methods have changed. But I take my hat off to him now, and I say to him, and he always said to me, Gossy, I'm not here to win friends, I'm here to win points. You remember that? And he was right. He was right. He was just picking teams to win games. If anyone wasn't happy, leave the football club. I just want my 11 to go out there and win me a game. So again, who's right, who's wrong? At that time, I had to say what I felt. And I moved on because of those reasons, I think, eventually. And the football club running out of cash, I know. Before Delia, thankfully, Delia stepping in, rescuing the football club and doing the incredible job that she's done over the past 20, 30 years, or however long it's been. He's one of the best managers. So I'm not sat here saying he's a poor manager at all. I'm saying at that time I didn't get on well with him. And at that time I didn't really get what he came from, but I do now. I understand exactly what he meant. And he's gone on to produce brilliantly in every place he's been, internationally as well. So I must be wrong.
Football's a game of opinions, isn't it?
Hey, you got it.
I just want to sort of fast all the way forward to the game that Norwich had. I think it was last summer against Inter Milan in that charity game. Quite a few people were wondering why you weren't there. Perhaps you could.
Yeah, I told you I'm a devoted family guy, and my sons are national table tennis players, and they were playing a Grand Prix in Blackpool, and I couldn't make it. I was determined to be with them, support them, take them, and put them in a position to enjoy their lives and succeed. And unfortunately, I missed that game. It was remarkable how, firstly, two things. The crowd that turned up, the 18,000 that showed their support for this football club and recognition for what we all achieved in the past was astonishing. And secondly, for the football club for them to design a kit that had a reminder of our shirt in our time, in our moment, again, remarkable and such a good move. I think the shirt looks brilliant. It's wonderful. Just looking at it, I can see the modern 2020 where we are now, and I can see 1993, 94. And I think that is a lovely touch from the football club. One they didn't have to do, but in terms of recognition for past glory days, that's a lovely gesture, and I was taken back by that. It was just a sad thing that I wasn't around to be part of that game or part of that night, but I hear it was success all the way through.
It's wonderful. Yeah, it was wonderful. And I suppose, lastly, we better speak about this current Norwich City team. Obviously, as we sit here, top of the league.
Yeah, I would like to.
Do you think they've got enough to take it over the line and get promotion?
Yeah, I'm not crazy enough, and I know the game now, and I've been in it long enough to know that nothing is guaranteed. I know the last two games we could be in the top two, lose, drop down into the bottom four, lose the playoffs, and out of it. I know that's an opportunity. That's reality. That can happen. It has happened to other teams. I also know that teams are promoted. Where are we? Even before the middle of April. If we can get to 90 points, you sort of guaranteed you're going to be there. Next 8 games, you get 8 wins from somewhere, get 7 wins from somewhere. You're going to be there or thereabouts of automatic promotion. Hugely impressed with. Firstly, the way the club have changed their philosophy of let's bring in a European manager, let's bring in this German manager, love that idea, who then brings in other European players with that European influence of play, their style of play, their mentality of play, which is totally different to how it's been for many years for Norwich City. Then he brings in a mentality of ball retention that the fans have initially thought, what is this all about? But that's the European side. It's European style. You look at only Barcelona and think, you admire so well the way they play their football in the great teams that they had of Messi and Xavi and Iniesta, those guys just dictating all around the pitch, all over. Short, sharp, 1 or 2 passes, 2 touch, 1 touch. Now that German mentality is the same. No, there's no way we're going to get to that level naturally, and that's no disrespect to the players we got. But to incorporate that style is excellent. Keeper throws it at the fullbacks, we keep the ball. Keep the ball in our third. Keep it. In the midfield, back to centre halves, back to the goalkeeper. Go out the other side. Come back to the kick, go out the other side. We're keeping it. I love that retention thing. And I think it's really, really good. And a change of style completely from where we have been for many years. What I think last season when he first arrived, was it 2017?
Yes, yeah, it would have been.
Wow. We had that mentality and that philosophy, and this is the strategy moving forward, but I believe we kept the ball so well, and the instruction was to keep it so much. The mentality was keep it, and we forgot to go forward. And when you lose the ball, you get back and you're hard to beat, and you're keeping it in your third and the mid zone, but you're not the counter-attack inside. You haven't got the players in there to go forward quickly. Break forward with that counter-attack inside with pace, create chances and score goals. Because we were so carried away with keeping the ball. And we thought that's the great thing to do. I say we, listen, the current players at the time who were in the side. The refreshing thing that we see now is that we've got the ability to go forward with pace and style. We've got the ability on the ball with the players that are in the team to create opportunities and score goals. And when you look at that core that's so central and so important to many, many different teams, the successful ones have got that. The keeper, centre-halves, midfield player, striker. That's so solid. And every player is a leader and a captain. Every player is outstanding. If you look through our side, it extends further than that core because everybody's a leader and everybody's got the ability to keep it and everybody's got the ability to go forward and join in the final third and create chances. Otherwise, we wouldn't have scored so many goals and won so many games. And I think 2 centre-halves are obviously Zimmerman and Klose have been outstanding. And there you generate your power from those 2 guys. And anything defensively is up to them and the keeper to dictate. We're not conceding as many goals. Is it coincidence that these 3 big, strong players, 4 big, strong players with the other centre-half when it comes in, are dictating so much? Is it no surprise that we maintain possession so much with players like Leitner in there, doing so well? I was really impressed with him. I know he's not played as many games, I think he's had some injuries, but I was really impressed with how he kept it and dictated all over the park and was prodding in the final third. And then, of course, you've got your Finnish hero up front who's scoring so many goals, who is about to break Grant Holt's record and Chris Sutton's record of 25, 26 goals in a season. And I hope he does because he deserves it. And Pukki's doing outstanding. He's a goal poacher. He's a creator sometimes. He reminds me of a Robert Fleck who does them short, sharp channel runs, but a terrific finisher. And then you've got the attacking fullbacks, so young, full of energy, full of enthusiasm, full of talent, who are playing beyond their age in mentality, contributing so much to the team. And on top of all that, you've got other players I've not mentioned, but you've got a collective mentality of work rate and a chemistry that gels everybody together. And now you've got a confidence and a belief with so many wins under your belt that breeds so much confidence and so much extra belief. My prediction is only a good one. It has to be. I can only see promotion on their current form. In terms of injuries, God forbid, there's none. In terms of form, the passion still's the same and the work rate still's the same, and I'm sure that will happen. In terms of being defensive and being hard to beat, I'm sure that's going to be operational and still there, because the manager will not let that slip, because that's the key element for not losing a game. It's just up to the players to be confident and creative when they go forward. They win their home games, which I predict they will, with the crowd behind them, then I predict promotion, automatic. But you can never tell when that slip-up comes. I hope there isn't a slip-up. I hope there isn't a blip. And I'm sure there's not going to be one. but hugely impressed with so many of their players. I've been to Coney recently, very fortunate to be invited down by Joe Ferrari and Ben Kenson and Mr. Webber and the manager, meeting me on the doorstep of Coney, which was, it's a humbling feeling that 25 years later that such important people at the football club can give me that welcome and that hospitality at Coney, and I was taken back by that. I had an opportunity to speak to some of the players and do a little speech, present Tim with his wonderful 100th appearance shirt, and a player who I think epitomises all what's great about this football club, with his desire, his passion and his professionalism and the way he sets himself out as a person as well as a player. It was a good opportunity for me, and I came away with so many good feelings that this is a changed football club to the one I know, behind the scenes. And it has a culture of success written all over it. I've also just found out that they put a comment that I made in front of all the lads.
Yes, we saw that when we went to Colney to speak to Stuart Webber, yes.
And stuck a quote from Jeremy Goss up there, and I'm loving that. And I'm loving that. I got loads more of those quotes, by the way.
They'll have to invite you back, won't
they?
It
won't make a difference to the players at all, but to see my name up there on that wall is, oh wow, you know what, sometimes that could be better than scoring goals at Bayern Munich and winning great games and playing well. Because you're remembered, and you're appreciated, and you're acknowledged for all your work rate and your achievement. And something as simple as that means a great deal to me. It really does. And slightly embarrassed by it at one point, but then I think, wow, that's special, isn't it? That is a changed environment of the football club. If they're putting something up there from a player who played 25 years ago, that's nice. It's a lovely gesture. And if Stuart Webber continues to bring that culture throughout the club, I can only see it going from strength to strength, and I can only see success all the way around on the pitch and off the pitch.
Finally, for me, who's the player that you look at now and say he's most like Jeremy Goss in this current team? In this current team,
there's, well, you name a few. Let me put it to you who you think, because I can see myself as a type of player. Now, you're not even old enough to remember me, are you? So
you're a bit before me, in fairness.
Okay, but if there's a workaholic guy, if there's a guy who's an honest guy,
I think Tribal's the one that.
If there's a fighter and a scrapper and a chaser, if there's someone who links up all the play, who defends well, attacks well, and does the simple things well, then who do you think that guy is?
Tribal's the one that stands out for me, I think.
Yeah. Okay, you got your answer. You got your answer.
Thank you very much, Jeremy.
Pleasure.
Absolute pleasure.
Thank you for talking to me.
Thank you very much.